Hey guys, how you doing? Welcome to Doug Bug Builder YouTube channel. What I'm going to be doing in this video is taking off the rigid bump stops that I have right now, and I'm going to put these pneumatics in their place, somewhere right about there. Keep in mind the installation that I do right here, this is going to be just kind of a quick down and dirty installation. I'm going to try and work with what the Bug has on here already so that I can just cut some pieces off and weld these back on. When I put these on the new chassis, it'll be a little bit fancier, a little bit cleaner, and probably a stronger bump stop installation. So you guys see what I've done here so far. I tapped on my pad down here. This is not welded yet. I cut off the bump stop that was on there. I cut the tube off, and then I folded out the edges a little bit just so that they would match the radius of this a little bit. What I need to do now, I've pretty much got this figured out as to where it needs to go, but I'm going to crank the lower control arm up to full compression again, because I want to check how my angle is of the bump stop, because I don't want it needs to be, you know, leaned forward a little bit so that when it first contacts this bump stop, they're not at severe angles, because that'll put a lot of pressure on the bump stop. The best thing that you can do is set this pad up so that it's essentially perfectly perpendicular with your bump stop at mid-stroke. That way you've got the least angle at first touch and at full compression, and then right in the middle of the stroke, it's right where it needs to be. So I'm going to crank this up until I've got about a ½ inch of my shock shaft still exposed. That's going to be my full compression. You want to make it so that even if the bump stop compresses and there's a little bit of flex in the chassis and everything, that your shock does not fully bottom out. Wow, that's actually pretty good. I'm going to center that pad a little bit. Now I'm going to come down a little bit, and I'm going to put the bump stop at about half compression. Okay, these are 4-inch bump stops, and that is now 2 inches out. And that's my mark. So that's exactly how it will be. But you can see here how, because the control arm is starting to come down, the angle of my bump is actually opening up like this. So what I'm going to do is I can change the angle of my pad here. I can turn the pad up a little bit, and that's what I'll do. I'm going to grind this paint off. I'm going to tack weld this canister on so that it's in place, and then I'm going to adjust this pad I'm going to actually lean it up a little bit so that when I'm at 2 inches here, it's completely perpendicular with the bump stop. All right, now I got that tacked on there. Now I'm going to crank it back up, and I've got the bump stop extended 2 inches. So now I want to make the contact patch there completely perpendicular with the bump stop right when it contacts there. That looks pretty good. That might be a little bit too much. Yep, I think that's good. Now I'm going to get another tack over here just to lock that in. I believe the last thing you saw was me welding the bump stop pad on there. I've got that on there in position. I've got the pneumatic bump stop all set up in here, and I've got it under 40 PSI right now. It's not nitrogen because I know that I'm going to bleed this out and change it. When I do set this up actually for road, I'll charge this with nitrogen. Same goes for the shock absorber. I had to bleed my nitrogen charge out of there so that I could compress it to take this apart. Right now it doesn't have anything in there. When I get roadworthy, I'll put nitrogen in there as well. Last night I came out here without the camera just late last night, and I added this limiting strap. The limiting strap has a bolt that goes through the bump stop bracket here, and then it's got a tab that ties down to the control arm here. Typically when I set up my limit straps, I actually have a piece in there that I can adjust so that I can tension it as needed. Being that this is not like my permanent solution here, what I did is I just bolted this in place as is. I set the shock to full droop, and then I compressed the shock absorber 1 inch. Welded my tabs, drilled my holes, bolted this in place. It extended. I've probably got about 1/2 inch right now because as you put tension on these straps, they tighten up a little bit. And they will stretch over time, so if this was a permanent solution, I would have to set something up so that I could adjust this so that I could make up for stretch over time. But I know it's carrying the weight right now because it's extremely tight. So like I said at the beginning of the video, this is not a permanent setup. If this was permanent setup, there's a couple things that I would do a little bit better. My mounting point for the limit strap would be a little bit more rigid. I would have an adjustment point for the strap. The bump stop, if I was going to put it in that position, I would actually put a 2 inch in there, not a 4 inch. The 4 inch, being so close in on the suspension, has to deal with a lot of arc change as the lower control arm goes up, and that's really hard on the shaft. That's why I angled the bump stop pad to try and alleviate that, and because of that, I'm never going to charge this bump stop with like probably close to 200 pounds of nitrogen because I don't want it to be under a lot of stress. I just want it to absorb some of it. But I am actually happy with the setup. This will be better than what I had before. I had the solid bump stops, and when I would hit those on the trails, it was a really hard hit, and I would get a little bit concerned that if I ever hit that too hard, it was going to bend my lower control arm. And the fact that I didn't have limit straps, that always bothered me on the trail. I was always afraid if I was getting too much negative that it would actually damage my shock absorber. So now having these in place, limit strap is good. The bump stop is good because this is my first pneumatic bump stop. So this is going to get me to kind of get a little bit of experience with this summer on the trail before I do the final installation of the new chassis. So that's going to get me some pretty good research and development on that so that I can really optimize the next chassis. So now I got to put all this back together, kind of shimmy the bug over a little bit. I'm hoping I can bust out the other side today. This is Sunday afternoon, but I'd like to get this all done while I've got all the tools out here. So I'm going to try and crank through that, but I'm going to end the video right here because I can get that other side done a lot faster if I'm not moving the camera around and doing all that stuff. So as usual, thanks for watching the video, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope it's helping you with your projects, and I hope to see you on the next video. Take care.